Hello, welcome to Math 050, and these are the notes over the class that we call Quantitative Literacy. Okay, so we're going to jump right into section 1.6, and this is going to be a section about exponential notation and order of operations. So let's quickly talk about our objectives here, and our objectives is what we would like you to be able to do by the end of this video. So what we want you to do is we want you to be able to write the exponential notation for products such as 4 times 4 times 4, okay? We want you to be able to evaluate exponential notation. We want you to simplify expressions using the rules for order of operations, and we want to use order of operations to remove parentheses within parentheses. So let's first start off with exponential notation. So when we have exponential notation, that means that we're multiplying the same number multiple times. So before we jump into that, let's write down that exponential notation. Exponents really means repeated multiplication. So repeated multiplication. Okay, and so what we have here is that we consider the product 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Okay, and so instead of writing this always as 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, we can kind of shorten that to something like this, where we call this 3 to the 4th power. So if we multiply 3 by itself 4 times, then we simply write that as 3 to the 4th. And if we practice that, we would just say 3 to the 4. And the 4 needs to be a little number that's above the big number. Now the big number we call the base. Okay, the top number we call the exponent, hence exponential notation. Okay, and so if we wanted to read this, we would say it as follows. Like if we had 3 to the 4th power, we would just say that as 3 to the 4th power, or we could say the 4th power of 3. Okay. We also over here 5 to the 3rd power. You could call that 5 cubed. Cubed is the same thing as 3. Okay, this 3 is an exponent. Or we could say the cube of 5. All right, or 5 to the 3rd power, or the 3rd power of 5. So a number of ways of saying this. I typically say it as 5 to the 3rd power, and like the first one, I would say 3 to the 4th power. Okay. The next one that you'll see quite a bit is when you have the little 2 there, and that means that you have something squared. Okay, 7 squared, or the square of 7. Or you could say that as 7 to the 2nd power. Okay. So, if I say something cubed, that means it's raised to the 3rd power. If I have something squared, it means I have raised something to the 2nd power. Okay, so let's kind of jump right in and talk about, some of the examples and things that you'll see on your homework. So what I want to do is I want to write the exponential notation for 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Okay, now how many times am I multiplying 10 by itself? And that answer is 5. So if you just count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my answer would just be 10 to the 5th power, and that's it. And that's my answer. Okay? Now if I look over here at example 2, let's do the same thing. Okay, similar question, different numbers. Write the exponential notation for 2 times 2 times 2. And so we count them. Okay, how many times am I multiplying 2 by itself? And that would be 1, 2, and 3. So I would write my answer as 2 to the 3rd power, okay? And that's it. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Now the next one we want to do is we want to actually evaluate exponential notation, okay? And so I want to rewrite this as a product of numbers and then compute that product. So if I look at example 3, if I want to evaluate this. Now evaluate, this word means that I want to find an answer, okay? So it means I'm going to, what I like to think about when I see the word evaluate is I need to do the math, okay? And so that's kind of a prompt, all right? It tells me what to do. So if I have 10 to the 3rd power, I'm trying to evaluate that. I need to do the math. Now, if I have 10 to the third, that means I'm multiplying 10 by itself 3 times. So I would do this as 10 times 10 times 10. Okay, and then we need to do the math. We actually need to multiply these numbers out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 10 times 10, which is going to give me 100. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply that again by 10. So 100 times 10 is actually going to give me 1,000. Okay, and that's my answer. That's what I'm looking for. All right, so now let's look at another one. Oh, way over here. All right, example 4 is we want to evaluate 5 to the 4th power. So if I rewrite 5 to the 4th power, I'm going to multiply 5 by itself 4 times. So I'm going to do 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Okay, now what this does is this is going to give me 5 times 5 is going to give me 25. Okay, I'm going to continue to multiply that by 5 and then by 5. And if I do 25 times 5, that's going to give me 125. And then I'm going to continue to multiply that by 5. So 125 times 5, if I multiply those two together, that's going to give me 625. Okay, and that's the answer. All right, so now, before I move on to other stuff, what I want you to understand is that there are also ways of you doing this on the calculator. And so to do these on the calculator, if I were to do 10 to the third, and we want you to be able to do them by hand, but it's always a good idea to check yourself with a calculator. You would simply just type in 10 times 10 times 10 and see what you'd get, and you should get the same thing. Okay. So the calculator is something that should help you understand what you're doing, not replace your work. And the same thing over here. If I were to do 5 to the 4th power, I would just do 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 into the calculator to see what we get. Okay, so I think you guys are all fairly familiar with that, but I don't want, again, I don't want it to replace your work. And the other thing that I do want to talk about with this is that when you have 10 to the third, okay, this doesn't mean 10 times 3, okay? No, we don't do that, all right? It means that you're taking 10 and multiplying it by itself 3 times, okay? So just so we're clear on that we don't mistake those, because that's a very common mistake. Okay, let's move to the next portion of the section, and that is what we call order of operations, okay? And you guys might be more familiar with the term PEMDAS when we talk about order of operations. So over here, I'm just going to write down PEMDAS vertically like this, okay? And what the P stands for parentheses. E stands for exponents. M is multiply. D is divide. A is for addition, and then S is for subtraction. So when we're evaluating problems, we have to go in this order, okay? So if we have any sort of calculations within parentheses, brackets, braces, we do those calculations before we do anything else, okay? And then we evaluate any exponential expressions, and then multiply and divide, we do those from left to right. And then addition and subtraction, we do those from left to right. So you can do multiplication and division within the same step, but you just want to make sure that you work from left to right. Same thing with addition and subtraction, okay? So let's go ahead and turn to the next page, and we'll take a look at some examples. Okay, so let's jump right in here, and before I do anything, I'm going to write over here PEMDAS, okay? I typically do that when I'm doing these problems, just so that I know what it is that I need to do. So in this first example here, we want to simplify 16 divided by 8 times 2, okay? Now, what I'm looking for first is, do I have any parentheses? And I don't, okay? I just have single numbers with operations in between them. I don't have any exponents because I don't have any little numbers above the other numbers. but I do have multiplication and division. Okay, so because I only have those two, I'm going to go from left to right. So when I do this, I'm going to first evaluate 16 divided by 8. Okay, and 16 divided by 8 is going to be the value 2. And then I just bring down what else I haven't done, and I have 2 times 2. And when I multiply those together, that's going to give me 4. And that's my answer. Okay, now what you also could do, and I do want to see the work on this when you guys do your homework and when you show me how to do problems. I want to see you go through this step by step. You can go through and plug this into a calculator as is, and it should give you the same thing. Okay, so, but again, use your calculator to help you. Don't use it to do all your work. Okay, all right, let's go to the next one. And this one, what I notice is that I've got 7 times 14 minus the quantity 12 plus 18. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to do what's inside my parentheses first, 12 plus 18. And so from one step to the next, I want to write down, okay, I'm not going to do the operation for 7 times 14. I'm going to leave that on the next step. So 7 times 14 and then minus. The first step I want to do is evaluate what's inside my parentheses. So 12 plus 18, that's going to give me a value of 30. Okay, and I can keep my parentheses there. That's okay, all right? Going from one step to the next, I get 30, all right? The next thing I want to do is, now I've got 7 times 14 minus 30, okay? So what I want to do is I want to do the multiplication part next. So 7 times 14 is going to give me 98, okay? So those two numbers multiply to 98, and then I'm going to subtract off 30 from that, okay? So I've got 98 minus 30, which is going to give me a total of 68. So again, guys, you know, if you are having trouble with some of these calculations, you know, I want you to be able to go from step to step. But if it requires you to multiply 7 times 14 to verify what that is, that's okay to do, okay? All right, let's go to the next one. Now, these do get a little bit longer and a little bit more complex, so we got to make sure we're keeping track of everything. So on this one, I've got 7 times 2 minus the quantity 12 plus 0 divided by 3, and then minus the quantity 5 minus 2. So let's, using our order of operations, let's use our, all right, so let's do what's inside the parentheses first. Let's do 12 plus 0 and 5 minus 2. Now, everything else that we haven't done yet, we still just write down on the next line. So I'm going to write down 7 times 2 minus this quantity. Now, 12 plus 0 is just going to give me 12, okay? And then we're going to divide that by 3, and then we're going to subtract 5 minus 2. So the quantity 5 minus 2 is going to give me 3. So we're going to subtract off 3 from that. Okay, now we've gotten rid of the parentheses. We don't have any exponents. Now we have multiplication and division. So I've got 7 times 2, and I've got 12 divided by 3. Okay? So I can do 7 times 2, that's going to give me 14, so multiply those together, it gives me 14, minus 12 divided by 3, and 12 divided by 3 is going to give me 4, and then we're going to subtract off another 3, okay? So now on this step, I want to just go from left to right, so I'm going to do 14 minus 4, which is going to give me 10, so 14 minus 4 is 10, and then minus 3, and then 10 minus 3 is going to give me a total of 7. So when we evaluate this or simplify it, we're condensing this down into one number, okay? And so the other thing is that, you know, when you guys go through this, you should be able, you know, when you look at my homework solutions online, you should be able to go from this step to this step and be able to explain what math did I do from this step to this step, okay? What's different, what's the same, and what's different, okay? And then from this step to this step, and this step to this step, all right? So something we should be able to do, okay? All right, The next thing I want to do is this problem here. All right, now we've got quite a bit going on. We've got 4 squared divided by the quantity, 10 minus 9 plus 1 quantity cubed, and then times 3 minus 5. Okay, so this one's kind of tricky. But if we use our order of operations, we'll be okay. So the first thing I want to do is anything inside the parentheses. So I want to do what's inside these parentheses first before I do anything else. So the next step I'm going to write down 4 squared and then divided by, let's go ahead and do 10 minus 9. So this part is going to give me 1 and then plus 1 quantity cubed times 3 and then minus 5. Okay, now I still have to evaluate what's inside the parentheses. Okay, I only did one step here. I've got another step. So I'm going to do 1 plus 1, which is going to give me 2. All right, but let's first do this. 4 squared divided by, okay, this quantity then becomes 2 cubed, and then times 3, and then minus 5. Okay, so I've done what's inside the parentheses. Now I need to do the exponents. Okay. First one I have is I have 4 squared. Now that's 4 times 4, which is going to give me 16. So 4 squared is 16, okay, and then divided by 2 cubed. Okay, now 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, and over here I'm just going to do that over here. 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is going to give me 4 times 2 again, which is just going to give me 8. Okay, so 2 cubed is going to give me 8. All right, so then I'm going to write that. I'm going to write down 2 cubed is 8, and then times 3, and then minus 5. Okay, now I have division here, and I have multiplication. So the division part here, 16 divided by 8, let's do that part first, and that's going to give me 2. Okay, so 16 divided by 8 is 2. All right, that part becomes 2, times 3, and then minus 5. Okay, and then 2 times 3, that's going to give me a value of 6, and then minus 5. And if I do 6 minus 5, this is going to end up giving me 1. Okay, so again, there's a lot of steps here. Okay, but, take your time, be neat with your numbers, know what you're doing, say what you mean what you say when you're doing your math. Okay, and if you get stuck, you get stuck. Okay, but we'll just, you go back to this video and make sure that you're able to follow along with this. Okay, if you need to rewind to go back, please go ahead and do that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. The last part I want to do here is calculating averages. Okay, so what we do to calculate the average of these numbers is we want to use addition and then division. So when we do this, and let's just write out here, let me find some space on the left side. Calculating averages means we add up all the numbers, and then we divide by the number of numbers. Okay? By the number of numbers. Okay, kind of a mouthful. But let me show you how this works. All right, so if I wanted to find the average of 2, 3, 6, and 9, what I would do is I would add up all those numbers. We're going to do 2 plus 3 plus 6 plus 9, and then I'm going to divide by a number. And I'm going to divide by the number of numbers I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. So that means I'm going to divide this by 4. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to group these up here. Okay, I want to add those numbers in the numerator before I divide by 4. Okay, and so if I do that, 2 plus 3, and let's kind of do this step by step. 2 plus 3 is going to give me 5. Okay, plus 6 and then plus 9. Okay, all divided by 4. 5 plus 6 is going to give me 11. So my next step, I would write this as 11 plus 9, and then divide by 4. Okay, 11 plus 9 is going to give me 20. Okay, and then divide that by 4. And so if I divided 20 divided by 4, that's going to give me a value of 5. Okay, now the average is kind of like a middle ground, middle number. So if you get something that's like way smaller than 2 or like way bigger than 9, then you probably didn't get that right. So your number, your average should be between your smallest and your biggest number. Okay, kind of make sure you get that right. All right, let's take a look at this next one. Now we've got to read some information from a table. And what it says since 1995, 4 national parks have been established in the United States. The sizes of these parks are shown in the figure below. So we got Black Canyon, Cuyahoga Valley, Congaree, and we've got Great Sand Dunes. And we've got the different sizes in acres, okay? And we want to determine the average size of these 4 parks, okay? So now my largest size is the Great Sand Dunes National Preserve, and that's 42,980 acres. And then our smallest is 26,550. So my average should be between these two numbers. So now it wants me to find the average of these. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and add them all up. Okay, I'm going to do 32,950 plus 32,860 plus 26,550. And then I'm going to do 42,980. Okay, and I'm going to add all those up. Now this would be one that you'd probably want to do in your calculator. But then I want to divide by a number. Now how many of these numbers do I have? I've got 4 of them, so I'm going to divide by 4. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add all these numbers up real quick and then divide by 4. All right, so when we add them up, we get 135,340, and then we're going to divide that number by 4, and if we do that, we get, all right, and so what we get when we divide that by 4 is we get 33,835 acres, okay? And so, you know, is that number in between 26,550 and 42,980, and it is, okay? And so even when I was just doing that now, guys, I miscalculated a few things and got a big number, okay? I ended up getting like 100-something thousand, and I knew that wasn't right because it had to fall between 42,000 and 26,000, okay? So here's your homework down here for this section, okay? Go ahead and get started on it. A lot of these problems are similar to the problems in the video. So as long as you understand how to do the problems in the video, these problems should be very easy for you. So, all right, that's all I got. Hope you enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun making it. We'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.